Hello, my amazing artist. Today I'm going to teach you how to weave a bag on a cardboard loom. So let's go over the parts of a loom. Today our loom is going to be the cardboard, and the warp are the white strings attached to the loom. I will teach you how to add the white strings to the loom. And then the working yarn that goes through the warp is called the weft. Okay, let's get started. So if you look at your loom vertically, you'll see these little notches. We will use those when adding the warp. But first, hold your loom horizontally, so side to side, and we're going to label it with our name. This way I know whose loom is whose. So you're going to cut off a little piece of tape and then just write your name. And please write your class code. When you are done, stand up. All right, let's add the warp. So we're going to each have a ball of white yarn, find the tip, and then stretch out about an arm's length. Take the ball of yarn and set it on the ground by your chair. We're not cutting anything yet. Now let's tape the yarn to our loom. So you want to tape it on the back side of the loom, but across from where the name is. So we'll tape it at the top, the name is at the bottom, but this is the back of the loom. Now take the yarn and you're going to put it through the notch on the back. See that? It's going to go through the notch. You're going to flip it to the front, pull the yarn through, and then put it through the notch on the opposite side. Flip it to the back, drag it across, put it through the notch on the opposite side, and flip it to the front. Now here's just a better view of what I'm doing. So again, it just goes across through the notch, flip, across through the notch, flip. Repeat this process until the entire loom is covered with the warp string. I am all done when there are no more notches to put the yarn through. So I'm going to stop on the back side of the loom, and I'm actually going to cut my yarn now. And I'm going to tape it diagonally across from where I first taped the yarn. I know I did this correctly. When I see the back of the loom, I can see my name, and where I just taped it is diagonally across from where I first taped it. Okay, artists, let's get to the fun part and start weaving. This is a yarn monster. You're going to hold it by the knot at the top and choose one strand. It could be any color, but you just need one strand of yarn. And you're going to cut it off of the yarn monster's hair by cutting really close to where the knot is, but not cutting the knot and never just pulling out its hair. That would hurt. All right, and so to begin, we're going to thread the needle. This is called the eye of the needle, and we're going to put the yarn through the hole there, through the eye of the needle. So really, you just take the tip of the yarn and you pull it through the hole. Now, if your yarn is starting to fray like this is, that means the pieces of the yarn are kind of falling apart there. You can twist it, and that helps it stay together, and it's a little easier to thread through the eye of the needle. But if you're still having a hard time, here's a little trick. Just grab a little piece of tape, and you're actually going to wrap it around the frayed part of the yarn. When the yarn's fraying, it's just the strands falling apart a little bit. So take a little bit of tape and literally just wrap it around. Try to keep it small, like you're rolling it up, and then try threading that through the eye of the needle. It will help a little bit. So if you ever have trouble, this is a little trick for you. Now, to make sure the yarn stays, we have to tie it to the needle. So for this part, make your working end into a circle like this. It's called a loop, okay? So again, working end of the yarn makes a loop, and it's going to go under that strand. It now goes through the hole and pull. Again, on top, working yarn goes under, in the hole, hold, and pull. And there you go. You just tied it to your needle. And you can cut this little extra part off because it makes it a little easier to work with. Okay, friends, so now we're going to start weaving on the loom. This yarn we're going to weave with is called the weft. So I'm going to refer to it as the weft. That's our working yarn. Very first thing we're going to do is go under that first warp, over, under, over, under, over, and I'm going to keep going until I get all the way across. So you just really have to look where your needle is, okay? It's kind of awkward to show you, but I'm going to try my best. So let's see, I'm going under that warp. I'm going to pull it through just to make it a little easier to see. And let's test. I'm under, over, under, over, under, over. Pattern continues. Right here, I am under the warp. So I'm going to go over, under, over, under, over, under. And then pull on your very first row. You're going to pull all the way, and we actually have to tie this or else it will fall off. So then take the weft, and here's what we're going to do. On your second warp string, pull up a little bit. See how that looks like a hill? Okay, watch again. Second warp string, pull up on the weft to make a little hill. And now take the end, we'll call it the tail. The tail is going to go under that little hill. Now you made a loop, and make it go into the loop, under, and pull. That creates a knot, and it's going to tie to the warp so that it stays. Nothing falls off. Okay, you just did your very first row. So now we're going to flip the loom to the back side and repeat the same process. So I now see the back of it, and look at my string. I'm under, so my next step is to go over, over, under, over, under, over, under. Repeat the pattern. When weaving, we always repeat this pattern for this project. Over, under, over, under. If you ever get lost, look at where you were last to know what to do next. So I was under, next is to go over, right? Over, and then under, over, under, over, under, over, under. And here's something important to know, friends. We're not gonna worry about this piece that's taped. Imagine that is not there. It's taped to tell us to not weave through this string. That is only there to make it stay to the loom, okay? Stay attached. So I'm under, flip it to the front. What's my next step? Over, and under, and over. And I just continue this pattern. Every time that I pull through and make a different row, I want the rows to be close to each other. So I'm using my fingers to like scrunch the yarn up. It's going to create a tight weaving pattern, and there's not going to be any gaps in my finished product. Okay, so see that? I just use my fingers and kind of scrunch them together so that they stay nice and tight. Don't forget to do that little scrunching piece. That will make your life a lot easier as you work on this project. Now, when you start to run out of yarn, of weft yarn, you need to cut it off of your needle, and we're actually going to add more. How you add more weft or more working yarn is you just get a new piece from your yarn monster. Remember, cut it off close to the knot. Don't actually cut the knot. And then we're going to tie these together. There's a couple ways you can tie them together. I like to do this method. Lay your lines parallel, circle back to make a loop. So let's watch again. Parallel, they stay on my desk and move back like it's making a loop. And now it's going to go under, through the loop, hold on to that end, and pull. And there you go. We're really just tying these two together. If there's a different way that you know how to tie strings together, you can use your method. This is just one idea. Here's another one. Wrap it around your finger, both of the strings around your finger. That creates your loop. Take the tails, put them through the loop that you made, hold on to the tail, hold on to your other side, and pull. As long as these two get tied together, that's our whole purpose. Now that orange string is my weft, my working yarn, so I have to thread my needle, put the yarn through the eye of the needle, and then make a loop with that and tie it to the needle. Once that is tied, you are ready to keep weaving. Alrighty, artist, and then you're going to keep weaving. So I was under and then over. My next move is to go under, over, under, over. I continue the pattern because these strings are now attached. My weft is going to keep working in the same pattern that it was before. Each time that you are pulling your weft through the warp, make sure you do that little scrunching step. It's going to help you a lot and just keep your woven pattern nice and tight and looking really good. And if you have little excess yarn like I do from the knot that we made, you could cut that off if it bothers you, but you're actually not going to see it when we are finished with this product. So it's really up to you, whatever helps you. But here's just a little tip I like to do. I really try to scrunch those rows together each time. And if you ever get lost on if you're going over or under, look at what you did last to help you know what to do next. Alrighty, so we're going to keep going. Also, when I am working, I'm trying to keep my white warp strings parallel and in the same spot. If you pull too hard, they're going to get crooked and it's going to make your pattern look a little wonky and silly. It's normal for them to move. You can see where mine had moved while I was working and it's still okay, not a big deal. But let's look at what to do when we are finished. So you're going to cut off the yarn from the needle so that it's now free, and we are going to actually cut this off of the loom because we're done. To make sure things don't become unraveled, we're going to do how what we did at the very beginning. So pull up on the weft here, make a little hill, take the tail under the hill through the loop that makes. You're going to pull the tail and that will make a knot. This secures it so that it's not going to fall off or unravel. All right, friends, so here's the deal. I kind of messed up on mine, but I can still make it work. I would recommend not weaving this high up like I did because we have to cut these white strands off. We're going to cut off the warp to release it from the loom. So if you weave yours so high like I did, see how short the warp strings are now? It's kind of hard to make a knot with that short of string. So that's up to you. You know your ability on tying knots together. I would, like I said, I probably would not have done that very last color. So just be mindful. But let me show you what I mean. So now that I've cut off the white strands, I'm going to tie them. Just make a X and pull, and then again another X, which makes a loop, and pull. Very simple, just square knot here, and I'm going to do that for each of the two strands. So I find its neighbor and I'm going to tie it to its neighbor. X, under, pull, X, under, pull. Like I said, this is a simple square knot. I'm sure you know how to do one of these. And really what this is doing, guys, is it's keeping the weft from falling off of the warp. I'm just tying a knot so that it doesn't come unraveled. So I'm going to do this to each of my white strands or the warp to make sure it doesn't fall off. But you can kind of see I'm struggling when the strands get really short. So again, I would recommend not weaving quite as high up the loom as I did. Now watch what I'm doing here. I have to tie one of the strands on the back to the one on the front. It's kind of like I'm tying it on the side here. See, one on the front, one on the back. That's because I have an even number on the front and an odd number of white strings on the back. So I'll just tie those together to make sure there's still a knot there, and then I continue the process. So you can see I'm kind of struggling here, but it's still possible. How you can make this possible is you just hold on to the warp strands and push down the weft. So it's just going to condense those rows a little bit and make it a little tighter. So you'll see it on this side. I really had to do that. And if you're really struggling with this piece, of course, I am here to help you at any time. Just try your very best. This is our first time we're doing this, and there's a lot of work that goes into it. So be proud of what you've done. It's definitely a long process, but I think the result is so rewarding. Woohoo! Okay, all the warp strings are tied off. Look how cute that looks on the top. And here's pretty much my last step, guys. We're so close. We have to take it off of the loom. So you literally just scrunch it down. Start scrunching it down. See how I'm setting it on my desk and using that? You can do that, or if it's more comfortable for you to kind of put it on your belly and then scrunch it towards you, whichever works. But oopsie, look at this. You have to take this little piece off. If you keep it there, it's going to make it really hard for you to pull off. So take off the tape, and then we will worry about attaching that piece of warp string. Don't worry about it right now. You're just going to continue scrunching it down so that it comes off of the loom. I found when I was towards the bottom that this helped a little bit to then take my hand kind of like a clamp and like slide it off. You will find a method that works best for you. Maybe try a couple different things, but the best idea is just to be gentle. You don't want all that hard work to go to waste. And then remember how we had also taped another side? Well, you have to take that tape off too to finally fully release it from the loom. All right, y'all, now check this out. You're actually gonna flip the whole pouch inside out so that I don't see those little tied strands. So literally just flip it inside out. Kind of reminds me of flipping a sock inside out. And look, I'm gonna take my hand and gently just push out the bottom. So it's like the bottom of a bag or a pouch. And look, that's pretty much our final thing. We have to tie 2 more strands and we're done. Because we taped those 2 strands, now we have to tie those 2 strands. So just find the pair that it's closest to and add it. So basically now you'll have 3 of the white strands tied together. Make a little square knot by doing a cross, under, and pull. And then you can cut that little extra bit off just to make the knot a little cleaner. Okay, that was one. Let's tie the second one and we are done. For this, I'm going to literally just tie a knot on its own strand. So I make a little loop, it goes into the loop, and I pull. It's a simple little knot. Just putting a stopper knot on the bottom of this is going to make sure that nothing slips off and it is all cleaned up and done. I'm going to cut off the little extra bit and literally just poke it in, and so it kind of hides it into the bag. And that's it, friends. That is our pouch. I'm going to teach you as an extra extension how to add a little handle, but honestly, I think this is awesome how it is. I know this was a lot of work and a long process, but I really think the product is something so satisfying and rewarding. I cannot wait to see what we make.